It's easy to collect data, but turning your data into something of value, something actionable, that can be quite a challenge, especially if you aren't an expert in data manipulation and ETL. That's why we built IBM Entity Insight. Entity Insight is for the business analyst, someone who knows how their business works, but someone who is not at all familiar with how their enterprise data is architected. The business user's primary goal is to obtain insight. They want to take customer and business data that has been made available to them, whether that comes from IBM's MDM or other enterprise sources, and turn that into actionable insight. But that's not enough. They also want the freedom to upload and explore their own data sets, and maybe they want to match their own data against data from MDM, all without having to go to an IT specialist for help. Simply put, the goal is to help the business analyst get answers to questions they may have quickly and accurately, and let's not forget, easily. To help demonstrate the functionality of Entity Insight, we'll use a real-world scenario. I'm working as a business analyst in the marketing department of a bank, and my bank has just acquired the credit card business from another financial company. It's going to take a while to get the acquired credit card customer information incorporated into our bank's MDM system. However, using publisher tools from IBM, the data curator from my bank has made our trusted, governed, customer master data records from MDM available to Entity Insight. They have also made available to me information from the acquired credit card company's customer information file by ingesting it into BigMatch and then making that data available in the graph repository. So, I'll log into Entity Insight and I'll have the customers from MDM and the credit card file via BigMatch in my graph repository. I can search and explore this data from my data catalog and create subsets of interesting data. We call those collections. Using the tools in the application, I can visualize my data in graphical or tabular formats to find interesting information. We'll go through some of these use cases in just a minute. But first, at the last big banking convention, we collected a list of booth visitors that I've saved in a spreadsheet. I want to see if any of these booth visitors are existing customers of my bank or customers of the acquired credit card bank. Using Entity Insight, I can upload my file into the graph repository, which will result in my own private collection, an upload collection. Once that's in place, I can match that uploaded data to the data catalog. And here's how you would do it. This is the Entity Insight application. I'll go ahead and log in to get started. I really want to upload our data file from the bank convention and see if any of the people who visited our booth are customers of the bank. To do that, I'll navigate to my workspace, choose the Collections view, and then click Upload Data. After choosing my spreadsheet file in which I saved the booth visitor information, the file is immediately uploaded and scanned by the Discovery service, which will help me map the file's fields to the data model. Next, I'll tell Entity Insight that I'm uploading person records, and then I'll name and give a description to the upload collection that will be created. I'll also go ahead and add some tags to help identify the collection. Then I click Next to begin mapping the file to the data model. Entity Insight makes recommendations based on what it has discovered in the file. For example, the first column appears to be a first name, and the suggested type is indeed first name. In addition to the sample values, I can also see the completeness, the percentage of rows in my file that have data in this field. Finally, I can see the suggested model values that might map to first name. I'll go ahead and select legal name, given name, and this field is now mapped. The section collapses so I can see which fields have been mapped. I will now map the last name and address fields. Notice that the fourth column doesn't have a recommendation. Looking at the sample data, it appears that this might be secondary address information. Since there are no recommendations, I can choose a data model field from the list of mapping targets. I simply choose primary residence address line 2, and I'm good to go. I'll continue mapping the columns I want to import, although I do not have to map every column. If I want to change a mapping I've already made, I can simply click the mapping row to expand it again, and then I can make changes as needed. Finally, I'll click Upload to begin the upload of my file into the graph repository. Once the upload is completed, I can see an upload collection in my workspace. Clicking on the collection to open it, I can see the information from my spreadsheet now in the data catalog. I can click on a row to see all the detailed data that was uploaded for this particular record. If I hover over the info icon, I can see that the record source is my spreadsheet file. This is great, but what I really want to do is match my uploaded data against the bank and credit card customers in my data catalog. To do that, I'm going to create a match collection. I'll go back to my workspace, go to the Matches view, and click on the Match Some Data card. Before I can start matching, I need to tell Entity Insight about the type of match I want to do. In this case, I want to match my upload collection against the entire repository, so I'll leave the match type as is. However, if I wanted to match a collection against another collection, I can do that too. In fact, I can match a collection against multiple collections. If I wanted to match within a collection only, I could select the third match type option. Since I'm working with person records, I'll leave the person option selected. Next, I'll select my upload collection to match against the repository. From this point forward, it's just like defining any other collection. I'll define a name, a description, and some tags for my new match collection. When I'm happy with all the values, I click Finish Collection to begin the matching process. Once the match is finished, I see a new match collection. I can click on the match collection to open it. Remember how I looked at Leslie's record in my upload collection? Well, now I see Leslie as an entity. An entity is a logical collection or association of records. When I expand the entity, I can see that this particular entity is made up of two different records. One record from my convention spreadsheet, and one record from the credit card file. I can use the multi-term search bar to explore my matches, just like with any other collection. For example, I'll search for Julie, and I'll see that there were 4 records in the credit card file, along with one from my spreadsheet, that were combined into one entity. I'll change my search to Jason, and I should point out that since I'm in a collection, my searches are actually bounded by the collection, meaning I'm only searching within the defined collection and not the entire repository. I'll pick 2 entities and expand them to view their records. I note that the Jason Bush entity contains records from my convention file, as well as an MDM record from my bank's MDM system. Jason Christensen has records from my convention file, as well as a record in the credit card file. This proves to me that my match really did compare and match my convention file to the entire repository. I can also view these relationships graphically. By clicking on the graph icon, I will be able to view the various records and entities on this page, and even explore relationships that aren't part of my search results. First, I'll select Jason Christensen's entity node. I see a graphical representation of the entity and its records. I can tell that one record node is the record from my convention file, and the other is from the credit card file. Looking at Jason Bush, I can click on the convention file node. But when I hover over the bank record node, I see all the relationships defined in the bank's MDM system. What's more, if I click on the bank record node, Entity Insight will try to find other related data and add it to the graph. I check the list of relationships on the record detail, and I noticed a new relationship to Ralph Clark, who was not part of my search. Sure enough, when I look back on the graph, I can see that Ralph Clark has been added to the graph and is connected to Jason Bush. Walking the graph in this way is a very powerful feature and helps give me more context and an awareness of the network between my customers. Next, we'll look at the powerful search functionality provided by Entity Insight. I know we have a marketing promotion coming soon to market to credit card customers in Texas. So I'll need to create a search collection for people in Texas who are also part of the credit card file. I'll navigate to the data catalog, where I'll be able to search the entire repository. I click the new collection card with the advanced search option to begin. I'll select the primary residence province/state field and set a value of Texas. Notice that my search runs as soon as I add the rule. It looks like all my results are from Texas, but the record source is showing MDM records from my bank's MDM system, and I need to limit this collection to only those people in the credit card file. I can do this by adding another search rule, where the record source is equal to MDMSP, which is the source ID for my credit card file. Now this looks good, and I want to save this collection. To do that, I simply click on the Create Collection button. That takes me to the New Collection form. I give my collection a descriptive name, like Credit Card Customers in Texas, and in my description, I'll enter a list of credit card customers living in Texas. I might also add some tags to help me find this collection later on. Once I click on Finish Collection, Entity Insight creates a new search collection. Since I know we have a promotional mailing planned for these customers, I want to export this collection so that I can forward it on to our marketing team. It is very easy to export a collection. Simply select the collection card menu and choose Export Collection. The contents of the collection are downloaded to my computer as a CSV file that can be opened in any popular spreadsheet or text editing tool. The downloaded file is named the same as my collection. It took me less than 1 minute to run a complex search, create a collection, and export the results to a file. I know we have a targeted campaign that requires an even more complex search. We'll want to target college graduates between the ages of 18 and 30 and living in New York. To accomplish that complex search, I'll once again make use of the Advanced Search feature in Entity Insight. First, I'll create a new collection using the Advanced Search. Then, I'll enter a search rule to search for people in New York. Once that returns, I'll add 2 new search rules to cover the 18 to 30 age requirement. Finally, I'll add a highest education level value of college diploma. Things look good, so I'm ready to save my collection. Just as before, I can use this saved collection to do more research, or I can export the results for use in creating a direct mailing. In just a short while, and without involving IT, without performing any complex ETL and data loading, without a single SQL statement, and without having to leave this one application, I imported new data, ran a match process against the entire repository, investigated the match data and viewed graphs to gain context and increased awareness of my customers' relationships, performed a number of complex searches against combined and specific data sets, and exported data out of the system for further action. That's Entity Insight, empowering business users to turn raw data into action.